Dieter Bohlen sat at his desk in Munich, staring at the phone. 32 minutes. The piece of paper with Thomas Anders's phone number in front of him the entire time. His hand had reached for the receiver twice, both times pulled back. This was ridiculous. He was Dieter Bohlen, one of the most successful producers in German music history, and he couldn't make a simple phone call, except it wasn't simple. This was the first contact in 11 years. 11 years since modern talking broke up. 11 years of silence, resentment, separate lives. 11 years of pretending the other person didn't exist. And now he had to break that silence, had to reach out, had to admit without saying it that he needed Thomas Anders. His pride screamed no. His practical mind said necessary. February 1998. The music industry was changing. Nostalgia becoming commercially viable. The 80s coming back. Modern talking was prime nostalgia material. But calling Thomas meant acknowledging what Dieter had spent 11 years avoiding. That modern talking had been a partnership. That his solo success hadn't matched what they'd achieved together. That maybe he needed Thomas as much as Thomas had needed him. 8:47 p.m., 32 minutes of staring at a phone number. Pathetic. June 1987. Modern talking was at commercial peak, selling millions, dominating charts, from outside perfect, from inside toxic. They could barely be in the same room, every decision a fight, every song a negotiation. The breaking point came over a magazine interview. Thomas talked about wanting more creative input, about being an artist, not just a performer. Dieter exploded, called Thomas grateful, said he'd made Thomas a star. Thomas fired back, said Dieter treated him like an employee, not a partner. That modern talking success was both of them, not just Dieter's production. The argument escalated. Dieter said if Thomas wanted out, he could leave. Thomas said fine, and that was it. Modern talking was over. The press release was professional. Creative differences, mutual decision. The truth was messier. They divided assets, fought through lawyers. Then stopped speaking entirely. 11 years, Dieter threw himself into other projects, had success, but nothing matched modern talking's peak. Nothing had that chemistry, that magic. He tried different singers, different sounds. Some did well, none did great. Thomas built a solo career, solid, respectable, never massive, but sustainable enough to prove he could exist independently. For 11 years, they'd both been proving points. Dieter proving he didn't need Thomas, Thomas proving he didn't need Dieter, both proving nothing except stubbornness. Now 1998, Nostalgia acts touring successfully, 80s compilations selling, modern talking songs everywhere, rediscovered by new generations. Dieter had been approached by promoters, labels, TV producers, all asking would modern talking reunite. He'd said no every time, automatically, because yes meant calling Thomas, admitting things his ego wouldn't allow. But the money was significant, the opportunity real, and Dieter was pragmatic. This could work if he could get past his stubbornness, if Thomas could get past his, if they could work together without destroying each other. That brought him here, staring at a phone number. 32 minutes and counting. He picked up the receiver, put it down. What would he even say? Hi Thomas, want to make money together. Too crass. Hi Thomas, I've been thinking about old days. Too sentimental, unlike him. Hi Thomas, business proposition. Too cold, too formal. He needed something acknowledging history without dwelling on it, honest without vulnerable. Dieter Bohlen without being the version that had driven Thomas away. He'd gotten the number from Thomas's manager 3 days ago. A careful professional inquiry. Dieter Bohlen would like to discuss potential collaboration with Thomas Anders. Could you provide contact information? The manager had been surprised but cooperative, had asked if it was about modern talking. Dieter had said maybe. Had taken the number and sat on it for 3 days. 3 days of thinking, analyzing, rehearsing conversations in his head. 3 days of pride fighting pragmatism, ego wrestling opportunity, trying to find a way to make this call without feeling like surrender, because that's what it felt like. Surrender, admission of defeat. Acknowledgement he'd been wrong to think he didn't need Thomas. That modern talking had been bigger than either individually. That partnership, annoying and complicated as it was, had produced something neither could replicate alone. But it wasn't defeat, he told himself. It was business, smart business, recognizing market opportunity, capitalizing on nostalgia, building on an established brand. That's what this was, not personal, professional. He could do professional. He picked up the receiver again, dialed 3 numbers, stopped, hung up. What if Thomas said no? What if Thomas laughed? What if Thomas had moved on so completely that modern talking seemed absurd? Worse, what if Thomas said yes but demanded things? Equal creative control, equal billing, equal everything. Could Dieter handle sharing control of something he still thought of as his creation? These were questions he should have answered before picking up the phone, but he hadn't. He just decided to call and figured he'd handle the details later. That was his usual approach: act decisively, deal with consequences as they came. Except this time the consequences involved another person. A person he'd hurt, a person who'd hurt him, a person with whom he had 11 years of unresolved history. 8:56 p.m., 41 minutes. Either call or don't decide. He thought about the money, the opportunity, the potential, the alternative, continuing his solo career, producing other artists, never quite recapturing what modern talking had been, being 60 years old and wondering if he'd missed his chance, if pride had cost him something valuable. He dialed the full number. His hand was shaking slightly. He noticed, annoyed at himself for being nervous. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maybe Thomas wasn't home. Maybe this wasn't the right number. Maybe hello. Thomas's voice, unmistakable. 11 years hadn't changed it. Dieter froze. His rehearsed lines evaporated. Silence. Hello, Thomas said again, slightly annoyed now. Dieter forced himself to speak. Thomas, it's Dieter. Silence. Long. Silence. Dieter could hear Thomas breathing, could imagine his face, the shock, the confusion, the question of whether to hang up. Dieter Bohlen, Thomas finally said, like there might be another Dieter calling him. Yes, more silence. This was going exactly as well as Dieter had feared. It's been a while, Thomas said, careful, neutral, not friendly, not hostile, just careful. 11 years, I'm aware. How are you? Dieter asked. Immediately felt stupid. How are you? Like they were old friends catching up. I'm surprised, Thomas said. You're calling me after 11 years, with no warning, so I'm very surprised. I should have warned you. I apologize. The words felt strange. Dieter Bohlen didn't apologize. Thomas didn't respond, just waited, waiting. For explanation, for purpose, for what Dieter wanted. Dieter respected that. Thomas wasn't making this easy, was going to make Dieter say it. I'm calling because I think we should talk, about modern talking, about working together again. There, direct, no preamble. Thomas quiet, processing. Why now? The timing's right, market's right, significant interest. Financially, it makes sense. That's it, financial sense. That's a big part, yes. And the other parts, careful territory, honest enough to be credible. Not so honest he revealed too much. What we created together was special. Neither of us has matched it separately. There's an opportunity to do it again, better this time, smarter, clear boundaries, business partnership, professional, clean. Thomas laughed. Bitter, professional, clean, is that what we're calling it? What would you call it? I'd call it you realizing you need me. That modern talking wasn't just your vision with my voice, that it was both of us, that without me you couldn't recreate it. True, stung because true. Dieter wanted to argue, list solo successes, but that would derail this, turn it into the same argument that ended them before. He swallowed pride. You're right, modern talking was both of us. I won't say I need you, but I'll say together we created something neither has matched alone. We could do it again, if we're both willing. Silence, long silence. Dieter waited, let Thomas process, let him come to his own conclusion. What would this look like? Thomas asked finally. A reunion tour, new album maybe. Television appearances, capitalizing on nostalgia but also showing we're still relevant. Equal partnership, define partnership, we'd negotiate terms, make it clear who's responsible for what, avoid the conflicts we had before. You mean avoid you controlling everything. I mean establish clear boundaries and responsibilities that we both agree to. Thomas was quiet again, thinking, I need to think about this, of course. This isn't a decision I can make in one phone call, after 11 years. You understand that? I do. Give me your number. I'll call you back, maybe. I haven't decided. Dieter gave his number. Thomas wrote it down. Dieter could hear the pen on paper. Thomas, Dieter said, thank you for not hanging up. I thought about it for about 30 seconds after you said your name, but curiosity won. I'm glad it did. They said goodbye, hung up. Dieter sat back in his chair, exhausted. That had been harder than any negotiation he'd ever done. Harder than any business deal, because it wasn't just business. It was personal history. Old wounds, ego, pride, all tangled together. But he'd done it. He made the call, said what he needed to say. Now he had to wait, see if Thomas would call back, see if this could actually work. 3 days passed. Dieter checked his phone constantly. told himself he didn't care if Thomas called back, knew that was a lie. On the fourth day, the phone rang. Dieter answered immediately. "It's Thomas. I'm listening. I've been thinking about your proposal. I have conditions. Tell me. First, equal creative input, not equal control of production. You're better at that than me. But equal input on song selection, arrangements, image. We decide together. Agreed. Second, equal billing, not Dieter Bohlen presents Modern Talking. Equal partnership publicly. Agreed. Third, clear financial split, 50-50 on everything Modern Talking related, touring revenue, record sales, merchandise, everything. Agreed. Fourth, either of us can walk away at any time. No lawsuits, no fighting, clean exit clause. Agreed. You're agreeing very quickly. Why? Because your conditions are reasonable, and because I've learned that fighting over control isn't worth it. I'd rather have 50% of something successful than 100% of something that doesn't work. Thomas was quiet for a moment. I didn't expect you to be reasonable. I've had 11 years to think about what went wrong, about my role in it. I'm not saying I was entirely at fault, but I wasn't blameless either. Neither was I, Thomas admitted. I was young, stubborn, wanted credit I probably hadn't fully earned yet. And I was controlling, dismissive of your input, treated you like an employee when you were a partner. This was unprecedented, both of them acknowledging fault, accepting responsibility. Not blaming the other entirely. It felt strange, uncomfortable, but also necessary. So we do this, Thomas asked. If you're willing, I'm willing, cautiously, but willing. Cautiously is smart. We'll take it slow, start with meetings, see if we can actually work together again. If it feels right, we move forward. If it doesn't, we walk away, no harm done. When do you want to meet? Next week, Munich, my studio. We'll sit down, talk through details, see how it feels. Okay, next week. They set a date, hung up. This time it felt different, not finished exactly, but begun, a new chapter, or a return to an old one, depending on how you looked at it. The meeting happened 7 days later. Dieter and Thomas sat across from each other in the studio, both careful, both guarded, both testing to see if this could work. They talked for 4 hours, about the past, about what went wrong, about what they'd learned in 11 years apart, about what they wanted from a reunion, about what they absolutely wouldn't accept. It was the most honest conversation they'd ever had, possibly because they'd both grown up, possibly because it had nothing to lose, possibly because 11 years of distance had given them perspective. By the end of the meeting, they'd shaken hands, agreed to move forward, decided to record a new album, plan a tour, resurrect Modern Talking, not as it had been, as something new, something that incorporated what they'd learned, something sustainable. The reunion was announced in March 1998. The response was overwhelming. Fans who'd grown up with Modern Talking were ecstatic. The media was fascinated. Record labels competed for the distribution rights. Within months, Modern Talking was back. New album, back for good. It went platinum. The tour sold out across Europe. Television appearances drew massive ratings. The comeback was real, commercially successful, artistically solid, professionally managed, but more than that, it was proof that the phone call had been worth it. That swallowing pride had been worth it. That 11 years of silence could be broken. That partnerships, even damaged ones, could be rebuilt. For Dieter, the reunion validated his pragmatism, his willingness to adapt, his recognition that ego, while important, couldn't be the only factor in decisions. For Thomas, the reunion validated his worth, proved he wasn't just a voice, showed that Modern Talking needed both of them. That partnership meant equality, not subordination. The reunion lasted until 2003, 5 years, then they broke up again, different reasons this time. Tiredness, feeling they'd accomplished what they set out to do. A mutual decision, genuinely mutual. They parted as colleagues who'd completed a project together, not as enemies, not as friends exactly, but as professionals who respected each other, understood each other, could work together when necessary. Looking back, both would point to that February 1998 phone call as the turning point, not just for the reunion, for their entire relationship. That phone call taught them things they couldn't have learned any other way. Dieter learned that admitting you need someone isn't weakness, that reaching out isn't surrender. That pride, while valuable, can be a prison if you let it control you. Thomas learned that saying yes to someone who hurt you doesn't erase the hurt, but it can create something new, something that acknowledges the past without being defined by it. The phone call took 11 years to happen, took 41 minutes of Dieter staring at a phone number before he could dial, but once it happened, it changed Everything opened possibilities, created opportunities, rebuilt something both thought was permanently broken. Modern talking's second era was different from the first, more mature, more balanced, more aware of the dynamics that had destroyed it the first time. But it existed because of that phone call, because Dieter picked up the phone, because Thomas didn't hang up, because both were willing to try. That's the real legacy of February 1998. Not the commercial success that followed, not the platinum albums or sold-out tour, the willingness to try, the courage to reach across 11 years of silence, the wisdom to recognize that some partnerships, painful as they are, create something neither person can create alone. And sometimes the hardest thing you can do is dial a phone number, sit through the ringing, say hello, and admit that maybe, just maybe, you need someone you swore you'd never need again. Dieter Bohlen is 70 now, Thomas Anders is 61. Modern talking has been over for 20 years, but they both still talk about that phone call. When asked in interviews about the reunion, about how it started, about what made it possible, they both mention the phone call. Dieter will say, "It took me 41 minutes to dial, stupidest 41 minutes of my life. Should have called years earlier." Thomas will say, "I almost hung up when I heard his voice. Curiosity made me stay. Best decision I made." The phone call lasted 12 minutes, 12 minutes that ended 11 years of silence, that started 5 years of collaboration, that proved partnerships can survive breakups if both people are willing to grow, to change, to try. Again, that's what makes the story powerful, not the commercial success, not the platinum records, the human element, two people who'd hurt each other, who'd sworn never to work together again, who found a way back, not to friendship, not to the way things were, to something new, something built on honesty, on clear boundaries, on mutual respect earned through time and distance and growth. The phone call was just the beginning, but without it, nothing else would have happened. No reunion, no second chapter, no proof that even the most broken partnerships can be rebuilt. Just two people, a phone, 41 minutes of hesitation, 12 minutes of conversation, and everything that followed. That's the story of the phone call that changed everything, not because of what was said, but because it happened at all.